The story I'd like to tell you is a story about two miners who emigrated from Scotland. And they were among many because during the heyday of the mines operating and so forth, the mines were producing tons and tons and tons of coal. And people from all over the world came. And they brought with them their stories, their myths, their legends. There's one I particularly like. It's of the Welsh and English tradition, and it's called the Seven Whistlers. Now, it seems that there were seven miners one day, and they were just getting together and starting to drink. And it was on a Sunday afternoon. And then, when they were totally out of it, they decided to place bets on whistling. Maybe who could whistle the most. I don't know if anybody knows. And there they were, betting and drinking and just about passing out. Well, a lot of times something like this could be overlooked, but they were doing it on a Sunday. A Sunday. Oh, that was strictly forbidden. And so there they were, when all of a sudden the sound of wind and a whirlwind came, and it just sucked them up, up, up into the clouds, into the darkness. And their punishment for those transgressions, they were going to have to go from one place to another, where it was dark. And that included down in the mines. And they were there to warn the miners of imminent danger. I rather like that story. And then there was the story of the Scottish lights. Of course, it originated, as you might guess, in Scotland. And it was brought over by at least one miner whose name was Anthony Harvey. Now, actually, that was his son's name. The father's name was Robert Harvey. At any rate, he moved to Midlothian, and then eventually moved, after the house burned down, to Shaft. Now, he told every single one of his 10 children the story of the Scottish lights. Now, he had one son by the name of Anthony, and I think Anthony was somewhat high-spirited, not as compliant as some of the other children. He always was ready to push the boundaries a little bit. Yeah, and so when his father sent him into the mines to work when he was only around 14 or so, he didn't like it. He really resented it, as a matter of fact. He hated being down there in the dark all the time, and it was back-breaking work. And sometimes he was tall, and he couldn't even stand up. He hated it in the mines. And sometimes when he heard the whistle of a train, he started daydreaming. Someday he just wanted to get on that train and just leave for parts unknown. He thought about it a lot. And then he decided one day on a plan. He waited till a train came into the station. Then he went up to the engineer, and he was counting on his robust look and his handsome features and his charm. And he asked the engineer if he could go ahead and be hired to shovel coal into the furnace that produced the steam that produced the energy for that locomotive. Engineer said that would be fine. So Anthony got on the train. Oh, such a thrill of excitement as that train pulled out of the station. Now, he knew he might miss his parents some, but they were always telling him what to do. So he was glad, in a way, to get away. Of course, there was the question of that pretty little Helen. He was really fancied her. She was so pretty and so sweet. And he really hoped someday they could get married, but he wasn't ready to settle down. Not yet. So he would ride that train west. And from time to time, he would get off and he would explore around. And then he'd wait for another train and he would do the same thing, offer his services so that he could ride the train. He went all the way out west. He spent several years out there and he liked it. It was so different from life back in Western Maryland. But then, after maybe 3 or 4 years, he got a little bit, just a little bit tired of always traveling. So he decided to go back. Maybe part of it was to help take care of his aging parents, but I suspect it was more about reuniting with Helen. He did hope that she was still single. She was, and he asked her to marry him, and she said yes. And so the two were married, and they went to live in Midlothian. Well, Anthony was going to have to go back to working in the mines. He didn't like it, and he tried to figure out a way to get out of it. And I'm not sure how he connected, but he was appointed the assistant deputy to the sheriff. He did that. 1917 was the year, and he did that for 2 years. And then in 1919, he was elected sheriff. He held that position until 1930. And then he went back to working in the mines. I don't know if he was voted out or if he made that decision, but still, he was back in the mines. Now, one day, he was tired, decided to take a rest, just leaning on that shovel. And he looked toward the entrance to the mine. And there he saw 3 lights just bobbing along. And at first he thought, oh, those are probably miners just coming in to work, and their little carbide lanterns were on. But then he realized, nobody was supposed to be working there except for his 2 buddies and him. And then, as the lights came closer and closer, he could see there were no people beneath them. There were just lights. And he remembered the story that his dad had told him over and over and over again about the Scottish lights. He knew something was going to happen, something terrible. And he said to his buddies, come on, guys, let's get out of here. I think something terrible is going to happen. Don't question me, just let's go. They dropped their shovels and their pickaxes, and they raced as fast as they could to the entrance. They got out, and just moments later, wham! The whole roof fell in, killing the mules. Those men had escaped death by just moments. They collapsed on the ground, shaking, but also very happy that their lives had been spared. Well, the next day, it was very hard for Anthony to go back into the mines, but he knew that he had to. And it got a little bit easier as time went by. But then one morning, he grabbed his lunchbox. He left very early in the morning, and it was still dark. He was going down the hill toward the mines, when suddenly he saw the 3 bobbing lights. Oh, if them be them Scottish lights. Well, if I don't go to work, the boss is going to be real mad at me. I don't feel comfortable. Maybe I should just trust my instincts here. And then he thought to himself, well, maybe I should go to the mines and warn the others. let them know that something terrible might be happening. But then they probably wouldn't believe me. And not only that, well, if nothing did happen and they missed a day's work, they blame me. Well, I'm just going to go back by myself. And so that's what he did. He went back to the house. He plopped down on the steps going up to the porch. He just had his head in his hands, thinking, had he made the right decision? Should he have gone and told the other men? Well, it was too late to do anything else. So he just sat there for a while, and it wasn't long before the inspectors came to talk to him. The place where he would have worked that day had caved in, killing everybody who was inside. Oh, he found himself choked up, just shaking. Again, he'd come just that close to death. Oh, and his friends, he should have warned them. Oh, he should have warned them. And that's what he felt for the rest of his life. And anyway, he lived to a ripe old age because of those Scottish lights. He lived to be 77, and he died in 1956 after a long life. With regrets, yes, but still. Now, this story was one passed down from generation to generation to generation. And one lady whose name was Doris Bruner talked to the Cumberland Times News. She told about the memories that she had from the life of the farmers. Stories are important.